Now that Apple has released the last Intel-based iMac, that means we can look forward to the first Apple Silicon-based iMac, one that should come with a stunning redesign, new features, new power, and best of all, you might not have to wait too long to get your hands on one. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and yes, intro is being moved to here because I'm trying to hook people in with those opening lines, but if this is your first time coming to the channel and you like iMac news, well, you're probably some 90s kid who still watches old Apple commercials and Apple keynotes for fun. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I do too. Steve Jobs unveiling the first iMac is a classic and is required watching at least once a year, so if you're that type of person, hit the subscribe button, follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I don't care, and as the cool kids say, ring my bell so you can make Christmas happen even faster. Oh, I mean, get notified for when my videos go up, and then you can be the person that types first in the comments. I know I want to be just like that person. So like I said at the start, Apple just recently released a new iMac, which traditionally, according to the all-important Mac Rumors buying guide, would mean that it's a great time to plop down your money on a new one right now. Because on its own right, the last iMac is a pretty respectable spec bump with SSDs across the entire lineup, the T2 security chip, a new nano textured screen option, better speakers, a better 1080p webcam, and of course the options for new 10-core powerful processors and beefier video cards. However, unlike previous years, there's a transition on the horizon that will change what we know about the iMac, and quite frankly, the Mac forever. And that is Apple transitioning over to their own Apple Silicon chips based on the ARM design that will lead to advancements in multiple areas for the iMac. And although I've done videos on this topic before, we now have a better time frame of when to expect this iMac, and we know that the next iMac will be radically different than any iMac since 2012, which will be a given because the first thing we're expecting about this new iMac is that it will have its first redesign in nearly 8 years. Now we can actually learn a lot about this first new iMac redesign based on what Apple just gave us with the 27-inch iMac redesign, because the 21.5-inch iMac only received a very, very minor update, and that was basically just getting rid of the Fusion drive on the entry-level model and replacing it with a 256GB SSD. Yes, I know you can still spec it with a Fusion drive if you want, but again, this was a change made to the base configurations of the iMac. But that's it. It didn't receive any other new features that its bigger brother received, so no new processors, graphics card, 1080p webcam, T2 chip, and so on and so on. You might be scratching your head wondering why it wasn't updated, but it makes a lot of sense why Apple didn't bother upgrading the smaller iMac when you look at reliable Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo's timeline for the new iMacs. Kuo said to expect a refreshed Intel iMac sometime in the third quarter, which is July to September. Well, obviously we just received that iMac update in August, so Kuo is right about the initial timeline, but more importantly, because Kuo was right about the third quarter release, it gives him even more credibility to his second rumor that Apple is going to launch a new 24-inch iMac as soon as the end of this year, and in the worst case scenario, early 2021. In part, the 21.5-inch iMac wasn't updated because there's going to be a refresh for one very soon. As for what this 24-inch iMac is going to look like, all Kuo is saying is that it will be a brand new redesign, but that brings in another leaker, Sonny Dixon, who was wrong on the timing, but might be right about what this new iMac will look like. Sonny said to expect an iMac with an iPad Pro design language, Pro display-like bezels, a T2 chip, AMD Navi GPUs, and no more Fusion drive. Even without Sonny's tweet, we know based on most of Apple's recent product redesign, like the iPad Pro and the Apple Watch Series 4 and so on, they have been much more aggressive about reducing the amount of bezels around the display. So it's safe to assume that this next iMac will for sure have smaller bezels, maybe as thin as the ones that are found on the Pro Display XDR. The iPad Pro design language tells me two things. One, Apple is going for this flat slab design that harkens back to the design of the iPhone 4 on the recent iPad Pros and even the rumored iPhone 12. So if Apple wants to get all their product design languages in sync with each other, it also stands to reason that a future iMac will incorporate this flat slab design as well. We can also get some design hints based on Apple's most recent Mac operating system, macOS Big Sur. The apps in macOS Big Sur feature much more rounded corners, which should indicate that rounded screen corners are coming to the Mac lineup. Furthermore, I think it's safe to assume that any future iMac will now have two display options, one for the normal glossy display and one for the new nano-textured matte finish. As for new screen technology, we have heard for quite some time now, again this is coming from Ming-Chi Kuo, that Apple is aiming to have a brand new mini LED display which will stretch across the entire Mac and iPad lineup, and that's supposed to take place sometime in late 2020 or in 2021. A mini LED display for the iMac would mean that it would be able to have better contrast ratios and local dimming zones, which would enable the iMac to display high dynamic range content. This could be the first mainstream iMac that is ready for HDR video workflows, which will be a nice addition for video editors and creatives. The reduction of the bezels alone would be enough of a design refresh for the iMac, and there's not all too much else you can really do with that all-in-one in terms of a design. And while I do think that Macs will eventually get touchscreen displays based again on the Big Sur beta with the spacing of the user interface elements, I'm not so sure if the first Apple Silicon iMac will be getting a touchscreen. Now, because Apple is transitioning over to Apple Silicon, there's also some other features they could add to this iMac redesign that would make it a more attractive upgrade. The most popular of these features that looks like it's destined for a future Mac is, of course, Face ID. Well, it looks like that too may be coming to the 24-inch iMac, as 9to5Mac reported that the code for Face ID is in the macOS Big Sur Beta 3 release with the codename Pearl Camera, which is the same codename that Apple used for the iPhone X. If Apple is getting ready to use its true depth camera sensor, it means that not only will the iMac have face unlocking, but it will also have new features like Memoji, which also means the iMac will probably support a better webcam and one that has the ability to do 4K video calls. Ironically enough, the biggest change to the 24-inch iMac redesign won't even be the redesign itself, but what's on the inside of the machine. Of course, we are referring to Apple's own custom processors, which will be based on the A14 processor, the next processor destined for the iPhone and iPad. Back at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, they basically told us that Apple won't just be sticking iPhone or iPad processors inside of the Mac and calling it a day. Apple is working on making an entire lineup of Mac chips that will differentiate itself from the iPhone and iPad lineup. With that being said, all of these processors will still be based on the A14 processor, which is rumored to be based on a 5nm process this year. In fact, Kuo brings up that Macs with Apple Silicon processors will have a 50 to 100% performance gain over Intel processors. So this isn't just a little bit more power, this is a crazy amount of performance that Apple will be getting with their chip transition. In fact, Luke Miani recently did a video detailing the performance gains of the A14X based on leaks, and it compares nicely against what Intel is offering. Mind you, this isn't a processor that is destined for the top-end 27-inch iMac or other Mac Pro products. This is for Apple's entry-level iMac. So take a look at those performance gains and realize that even with the cheapest iMac that Apple sells, you'll be competing blow for blow with some of Intel's best processors. Furthermore, Apple's processors tend to run on much lower wattage and have lower power consumption, which granted might not sound like a big deal for the iMac, which is constantly plugged into the wall, but it will do wonders for the thermals and cooling performance. Remember, iPhones and iPads don't have internal cooling fans inside of them, and they are much more constrained with a smaller body and with less room to dissipate heat. So if we're looking at future iMac designs, this means that Apple could have two options. Apple could include fans inside of the iMac and ramp up their processors to even faster clock speeds, or go to the 2015 MacBook or G4 Cube approach and not include a fan. However, this time, they'll be able to actually get it right. With their own custom processors, they can give you a truly virtually silent iMac and still give you good performance. It will be very interesting to see where Apple takes the future of the iMac now that they are much more in control of the hardware that's inside of it. Apple's chip transition is such a big deal because now they can design computers exactly how they want to and not have to account for however Intel designs their processors. Hopefully, like Quote indicated, we won't have too much longer to wait for this 24-inch redesign, with a targeted release for the end of this year or early 2021. Now, I should mention, if you're in the market for the bigger 27-inch or I guess maybe even a 30-inch iMac based on a redesign, you'll have to be waiting a bit longer to get your hands on that one, as currently there is no mention of a redesign planned for that just yet, which makes sense as Apple might not have the more powerful versions of their processors ready to go for their more pro-level machines. But anyway, so far that's all we know about the new 24-inch iMac redesign. Please let me know, what do you think about it in the comments below? If you like this video, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to support the channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the links in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.